precisely 6 p.m. and I would like to welcome all the dignitaries on the dais for this session 2, very important session of the four-day international conference on eradication of biological and chemical weapons. And we all have gathered here for this session 2, pandemic, time to prepare and prevent than repair and repent. We have in this session with us the eminent speaker, Honorable Dr. Gagandeep, Executive Director, Translational Health Science and Technology Institute. We are going to have with us, or rather we already have with us, the Honorable Governor of the State of Kerala, former Cabinet Minister of Energy and Civil Aviation, Government of India, the eminent speaker of this session, Honorable Shri Arif Mohammed Khan. We also have with us eminent speaker of this session, Honorable Advocate Prashant Bhushan, eminent lawyer and social activist. We have with us in this session Honorable Professor Dr. Atanu Basu, Director Grade Scientist G, ICMR-National Institute of Virology, Department of Health Research, Ministry of Health, Government of India. We also have with us the student leaders, those who are going to express their views on this topic. But before we go any further, I would like to request the moderator of this session, Professor Dr. Professor Dr. Pande, to kindly give the opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Gautam. It's a great honor for all of us to welcome all the dignitaries, the esteemed panelists today. बहुत स्वागत, अभिनंदन और अभिवादन. It has been rightly said by Peter Drucker, the best way to predict the future is to create it. My friends, today for this panel discussion, we got the three dimensions. The first is emerging technologies, data is the king, and cyber hygiene. Many times we see that the post-COVID area, the 10 technologies will be dominating the entire world. And those technologies are A, B, C, D, A, R, AI. It's A for artificial intelligence, B for blockchain, C for cyber security, cloud, D for data sciences. Then augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, extended reality, and that is going to be the future of education and many more businesses. Then we said robotics, analytics, the data analytics, big data analytics, and IoT, that is Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, Internet of all things, and now people also started talking of green IoT, that is GIoT. Digital twinning is a process. In this post-COVID era, the virtual meetings, the online education, 5G, AI and ML-based communication, rural broadband, virtualization, these are again the technologies got emerged. The second point which has categorically mentioned in this panel discussion is about the data. The COVID-19 has brought about a need for an increase in self-reliance among the countries. Even India started focusing on Nava or Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is a self-reliant India. Most countries want to take control of their data from big tech as they worry about data colonization. Privacy-related issues may also restrict the availability of data. And as I said, even the Mother India building an education, innovation, and entrepreneurship ecosystem for new and self-reliant India. My friends, these testing times we face, data science has been at the forefront of detecting and predicting COVID-19. Data scientists at Johns Hopkins have been leveraging machine learning to predict risk scores of the disease based on the clinical data. However, the impact of the pandemic indicates that uncertainty would be a significant hallmark of a post-COVID world. The data science would consider the ambiguous nature of the environment to play a key role in the coming times. As in this discussion, in this panel discussion, the topic is time to prepare and prevent, then repair and repent. If data is the new oil, then managing this strategic resource is imperative before conducting analysis. COVID exposed to the uncomfortable truth about the model drifts, where the accuracy of models suffered from changes in time and data. So data scientists are predicting the spread of COVID-19 along with information on the number of lives it is likely to affect. However, the forecasting with incomplete data can further confuse people during these challenging times. The existing data sets on COVID-19 are incredibly biased. The community will have to think beyond just prediction and restrain themselves from using any data they get without being critical of the bias in the information that is being collected. The third component was the cyber security, the cyber hygiene, the cyber threats. All over the world, the COVID-19 pandemic has been the headline over the past few weeks. We are aware of it. COVID-19 has also forced many organizations, universities, and individuals to embrace new practices such as social distancing, hand washing, remote working. This is popularly called as a SMS, social distancing, mask, and sanitizing, SMS. While the world is focused on the health and economic threats posed by COVID-19, cyber criminals around the world undoubtedly are capitalizing this crisis. Nowadays, we are observing phishing attacks, mail spams, ransomware attacks, as attackers are using COVID-19 as a way to impersonate brands, thereby misleading the students, the staff, employees. This will likely result in more infected personal computers and phones, and this is very important. Not only the businesses, the universities being targeted, end users who download COVID-19 related applications are also being trickled into the downloading ransomware disguised as legitimate applications. My colleagues, the university should now take proactive steps by advising their students, staff, customers to be more vigilant and cautious, especially when opening the links, emails, or documents related to the subject COVID-19. My friends, the COVID-19 will change our lives forever with new work styles, new cybersecurity issues, new proposed policies, the personal hygiene, and so on. The fight against COVID-19 is not just for the universities, teachers, students, employees, but a joint effort from everyone. It is also apparent that post-COVID-19 organizations, universities will need to rethink their cyber risk management methods. And hence, in this today's discussion, the eminent panelists will be pondering upon the time to prepare and prevent than repair and repent. Thank you. All to Gautam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your introduction. And it is, yes, indeed, a very, very important session in this entire series. But before we go any further, I would like to request my technical team if they could please take us through a small film which is made on this particular topic. Over to you.
Data has become the new oil for nations who are trying to innovate and control the opportunities arising from it. The emerging technologies like AI, big data, 5G have given rise to new dimension to politics. Let us understand pandemic is a time to prepare and prevent than repair and repent at International Conference on Eradication of Biological and Chemical Weapons.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, to address all of us, we have our eminent guest of this particular session, Honorable Dr. Gagandeep Kangji. But before I request her to address the gathering, I would like to take the privilege to introduce her to all of you. Honorable Dr. Mrs. Gagandeep Kang, Executive Director, Translational Health Sciences and Technology Institute. Dr. Gagandeep Kang, FNA, FSc, FRS, born on November 3rd, 1962, is a clinical scientist, professor in the Department of Gastrointestinal Sciences at the Christian Medical College, Vellore, India, and currently the Executive Director of the Translational Health Science and Technology Institute, Faridabad, an autonomous institute of the Government of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. She is the leading researcher with the major research focus on the viral infection in children and the testing of rotaviral vaccines. Her comprehensive research on rotavirus has demonstrated a high burden of rotavirus diseases across the India. The genetic diversity of viruses, the lower protection from infection and vaccines, and exploration of several approaches to improve the performance of oral vaccines. Her work has led her being described as India's vaccine godmother. She has received honorary appointments as the associate faculty member of the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health in Baltimore, Maryland, and adjunct professor at the Tufts University School of Medicine in Boston, Massachusetts. We are really, really honored to have you here, ma'am, today with us, and it is indeed our honor and privilege to listen to your thoughts and views. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Will it be possible for me to share content?
It's visible, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me for this very important event. And you're really talking about something that is very close to my heart, which is the idea that being prepared for emergency situations is much better than scrambling in times of stress to try and solve problems. And what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is take you through how vaccines have a role to play in pandemics and some of the efforts that the global community has made for preparation. This can be a lesson to all of us, not just for vaccines, but for other approaches to thinking about how we can handle different kinds of emergencies. So, the idea of a pandemic is a really scary one. But when you think about it, actually, we live with outbreaks of infectious diseases all the time. An outbreak is two or more cases that are linked together in time and space. An epidemic is a large outbreak. It's usually limited to a geographic region. And a pandemic is an outbreak that spreads around the world. Now, we know how to deal with outbreaks, and to some extent, we know how to deal with pandemics. And it is really the principles of control of infectious disease that we need to be able to apply sensibly. Now, why are we seeing so many infectious diseases? The number and the diversity of outbreaks has really increased over the past 30 years. And that's because people travel a lot, people come in contact with animals a lot, and we are changing the environment that we live in. Whether it is living in crowded communities ourselves, or whether it is deforestation that puts animals in close contact with humans, whether it is migrations or it is increasing trade from different regions of the world, there are many drivers that spread infectious diseases. If you look at a map of all the flights in the world at any given time, 6 months ago, you'll see that we are constantly moving from place to place. And just in the last 30 years, there has been an alphabet of outbreaks from AIDS to Zika. What you can see here on this slide is for every letter of the alphabet, there is something that causes an outbreak. For many letters, of course, there are many such causes of outbreaks. I've just given some examples. Now, AIDS emerged in the 1980s. We've had Zika, MERS. We've had a number of different things that have come up that we don't know about, which occur in smaller communities. If you take the idea of Ebola, we've known about Ebola since 1976. But Ebola came to the forefront for us only when it occurred in urban areas in West Africa in 2014. And currently, we are seeing another outbreak of Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, these kinds of outbreaks happen all the time, and frequently we don't pay attention to them. And we seem to think that out of sight is out of mind until you have something that affects your neighbors and you. But something affecting your neighbors and you is not cause for panic. It is cause for preparation and for a rational approach to handling things. Now, if you think about Ebola, and this is a picture from an Ebola facility that was built out of nothing in 3 countries in West Africa. Ebola affected about 30,000 people at the time. And the World Bank estimated that in terms of healthcare costs, in terms of setting up facilities like this, Ebola cost the world $4 billion in direct costs. However, the disruption to trade, the disruption to the world economy actually resulted in a cost of about $54 billion. It's estimated that this pandemic is going to be costing us in the trillions of dollars, not billions. And had we been better prepared for it, some of these costs could have been mitigated. Now, when Ebola happened, a lot of people got together and began to think about how to be prepared. The WHO developed an R&D blueprint for action to prevent epidemics. There were a number of national academies that got together, looked at global health risks, tried to think about what is it that we can do to be better prepared for epidemics. Now, the interesting thing about Ebola was that actually there was a vaccine for Ebola that was ready before the outbreak. It had been through phase 1 trials in humans, but this vaccine had sat in a freezer for years. And it sat in a freezer because nobody wanted to make a vaccine for a disease that was unpredictable, for a disease that was going to only affect 10,000 people or 30,000 people at most. How can you sustain a business when you have a disease that is unpredictable and requires a small number of doses of vaccine? Vaccine companies certainly are not interested. So, in response to this and to the calls for global action, an organization was set up called the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. The idea here was preparedness, response, and sustainability. Essentially, can we make vaccines? Can we have them ready? Can we have them available and stockpiled so that when there is an outbreak, we can test the vaccines further? Now, the Ebola epidemic was 2013-2014. CEPI was established in 2016-2017, and the idea of CEPI was to rationalize and accelerate research and development responses to new outbreaks, to coordinate across industry, academia, governments, philanthropies, and NGOs, and to prioritize which kinds of platform technologies and targets should be used, and to facilitate the development of vaccines for emerging infectious diseases. So there were 5 organizations that were the founding members of CEPI, and these were the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, the Government of Norway, the World Economic Forum, and the Government of India's Department of Biotechnology. These were the 5 signatories that established CEPI. Now, in addition to the work that CEPI was doing, the WHO decided to bring out the R&D blueprint, which every year would meet in December and would update the top 10 threats for infectious disease threats that WHO predicted would cause disease. So in addition to the 10 threats, there was always an 11th one called Disease X. And Disease X is a disease that you don't know what the cause will be, you don't know when it will come, you don't know where it will come, you don't know how many people it will affect. So in response to the idea of the R&D blueprint, CEPI identified targets. The initial targets were Lassa, MERS, and Nipah viruses affecting West Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. And then later, when CEPI had a little more money, Rift Valley fever and chikungunya were also added to the list. In addition to these specific targets, there was also disease X, which was the disease to which we would need to make a very quick response without knowing what the disease would be. So that required rapid response platform technologies. So in the first 2 months of disease X, what we now know as COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2, CEPI managed to fund 12 programs to support vaccine development. So much so that now CEPI has had investments from multiple other governments, and CEPI and the Gavi Alliance are leading the vaccine pillar of what is called the ACT Accelerator, the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, for making and then distributing vaccines around the world. Now, all of this was not unexpected. SARS-CoV-2 is not a surprise because zoonotic diseases occur all the time and have been greatly increasing over the last 30 years. Whether you look at the number of outbreaks or you look at the number of causes of outbreaks, there are many that have emerged and have then either stabilized in the population or, like SARS, gone away. Now, during the past 20 years, we've had a lot of new technologies that have allowed us to make new vaccines. So we have 230 plus candidates for COVID-19 prevention. If we look at the kinds of technologies that are being used, we are using traditional technologies as well as ones that have never been licensed before. We have activated vaccines, inactivated vaccines, virus-like particles, recombinant proteins, a number of viral vectors that carry the genes for the spike protein, DNA vaccines, RNA vaccines, and many of these vaccines have now gone into clinical trials. There are 125 in preclinical development, 7 in phase 1, 6 in phase 2, 2 that have gone into phase 3 trials. These include the vaccine that everybody's heard about, the Oxford vaccine being made with AstraZeneca, and Moderna's mRNA vaccine. Now, every major player in the world is making these vaccines, and a number of Indian companies are involved as well. What you can see on this slide is that for every technology shown in red is where there is an Indian company that is engaged in the process. And you can see for every technology, there is an Indian company that is trying to make these vaccines. None of our vaccines are in clinical trials yet, but we hope that they will be soon. We need these vaccines and we need them fast, but it's important to remember that there should be no compromise on safety. There are, of course, issues of scale and of manufacture. We are going to need billions of doses of vaccine, and there are very few companies in the world that make billions of doses of vaccine. In fact, if you look at hundreds of millions of doses, 3 Indian companies do this: Serum Institute of India, Bharat Biotech, and Biological E, located in Pune and Hyderabad, make hundreds of millions of doses. Our vaccine industry leads the world in numbers of doses, but we make vaccines quite slowly and we make them on limited platforms. So we need to bring together the best in technology with our manufacturing capacity. DBT is leading these efforts in India, but vaccines are only one part of prevention. There are obviously many others. So, if I was to think from a clinical perspective, what else do we need? Well, we need public health and surveillance, and we need preparedness for clinical capacity. We cannot continue to ignore infectious diseases. Surveillance is expensive, but it is essential. We also need to be thinking about One Health approaches. I pointed out that outbreaks mainly come from zoonotic diseases, and it's important to be doing surveillance not just in humans but in animals as well. Infectious disease modeling is something that our country has not focused on, and we should be thinking about building that capacity. In terms of primary care, we've kind of neglected that. But if you want a population that is well nourished, that does not have comorbidities, we must invest in primary care. People have focused a lot on non-communicable diseases, but it's not like infectious diseases have gone away. And our hospitals have become very efficient, but efficiency has come at the cost of a lack of resilience, the ability to cope with increased numbers. So building in some buffer, some surge capacity is essential.
Sorry to
Coordination of
interrupt you,
all
ma'am,
these
but we have many
activities.
questions also, so I think we'll have to keep some time in reserve for the questions.
I'm
Yeah, please
right
go
at
ahead.
the end. So I think when we think about what needs to be done, we can look back at our leaders. What you do says what is most important to you. Actions express priorities, and we certainly need to define our priorities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And I request you to stay back for a few more minutes because we have many, many questions coming your way. So I'm going to request to stay back with us for a few more minutes. Without wasting any time, I would quickly like to move ahead with the next point on agenda. We have a young student leader who represents, who's from MIT School of Government and who is with us today. And MIT School of Government is also organizing this very important 4-day international conference. So I think we have already with us Shri Saeed Zakaria. So I request you to please go ahead. Over to you, Mr. Saeed. Mr. Saeed, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Am I audible now, sir?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Greetings to everybody listening to this. A very good evening to one and all. Time to prepare and prevent than repair and repent. Sounds like the most reasonable thing to do. But the question is, will we be able to do it? Because this is not the first pandemic hitting us. The world grappling with pandemic after pandemic exposes fault lines in the world system that we have made, world order that we've made in the politics. And also that there's something fundamentally wrong with our concepts, our priorities, and a refusal to accept what the nature is trying to teach us. The problem is not lack of science or understanding or creativity. The problem is we have abundance of it, and we are using it to destroy our own selves rather than bettering ourselves. It's not a lack of solutions, but a lack of will to act on the same. To quote Joshua Lederberg, a molecular biologist and a Nobel laureate, the single biggest threat to man's continued dominance on the planet is the virus. And what do we choose to do as a race? We choose to weaponize it. It's like setting my neighbor's home on fire and expecting that fire wouldn't destroy my home because I started it. It's utterly ridiculous what we're doing with our creativity. Until we don't fundamentally alter our incentives, we don't incentivize care over apathy, we don't incentivize inclusion over otherization, we don't incentivize life over death, we cannot really see a material change happen. SARS, swine flu, Ebola, and the current COVID pandemic emerged from one part of the world and rocked the whole wide world. The virus attacked regardless of race, creed, nationalism, gender, or any artificial barrier that we wanted to put up. But unfortunately, humans did not choose to fight it the same way. Fighting a pandemic required and will require global cooperation. No nation, no country, no individual for that matter can fight it alone. We cannot think that if we have the wealth to buy vaccines, vaccinate ourselves and our country, we'd be safe. Because the virus mutates and comes back full circle even stronger. We are not safe until the last man is vaccinated and cured. We are in this together. And frankly, we had to see this coming because we were warned of pandemics breaking out decades by experts who said environmental destruction, climate change is going to trigger pandemics. But we chose to ignore it because we were chasing this imaginary wealth. The numbers on the screen, stacking up of currency bills was wealth. When the Amazon forest was destroyed, nobody could question it because it was happening within the territorial boundaries of a country. When rainforests in Indonesia and other parts of the world.
I'm sorry, but we are running out of time. So if you could please, yeah,
sure. Thanks. I'll conclude. So we destroyed ecosystem that supported us and thought it's making life easier and making us wealthier. And another problem was the healthcare and education system. We saw it faltering and collapsing, even the most advanced one, and not rising up to the occasion. And education. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin, a remarkable step. He was the son of a farmer who could not afford medical education. We don't know how many Alexander Flemingos we are wasting and are continuing to waste and don't even know about it. In an era of globalization, free flow of labor, capital, technology, and goods, the world is like a boat. None can relax if there's a hole on the other side. We're in this together. We need to realize that we have to adjust to the realities of the nature. When we set up our own rules fueled by our own greed, we thought nature would follow the same rules. But sadly, it's not happening that way. I'd like to conclude by a quote by Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Environmental destruction everywhere is a threat to everybody. It is an injustice. Denying of education and healthcare is an injustice, and we cannot really stay silent about it. We cannot say it's not our business. We are equally in this together." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Zakaria. Thank you very much for your views. My friends, I can see you're asking many questions in the chat box. Please remember, we will not be considering any question which is asked in the chat box. I request you to please post me the question. Gautam Bapat is my name. So please post me the questions only in Q&A question box. The questions which are reaching me in the Q&A, only those would be taken. So please remember that. Thank you very much. Once again, Said Zakaria, thank you very much for representing MIT School of Government and putting your views in front of this particular panel. Thank you very much. And now it is indeed my honor and privilege to move on with the next very, very important and eminent speaker, Honorable Shri Arif Mohammed Khan sir. But before I request him to address the gathering, it is indeed my honor and privilege to introduce him to all of you. Shri Arif Mohammed Khan sir, born on 18th of November 1951 in Bulandshahr. He was educated at Jamia Millia School, Delhi Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh, and at Shia College, Lucknow University. Shri Arif Mohammed Khan sir started his political career as a student leader. He was the president of Aligarh Muslim University Students' Union in the year 1972-73, and also its honorary secretary a year earlier, that is 1971-72. He became, please mind well, everyone, please listen to me carefully. He became a member of Legislative Assembly in Uttar Pradesh in 1977 at the age of 26. Shri Arif Mohammed Khan sir is best known for opposing a bill passed in the Indian Parliament, the Muslim Personal Law Bill. The bill denies the maintenance of women, which deprived Muslim women of women's rights. He protested against the Muslim Personal Law Bill, even though it was passed in the Indian Parliament. Shri Khan has been deeply involved in writing since his student days. He is the author of the best-selling book of the year 2010, Text and Context, Quran and Contemporary Challenges. Now, Shri Arif Mohammed Khanji is actively involved in writing articles and columns related to Islam and Sufism. Shri Arif Mohammed Khanji has advocated abolishing of All India Muslim Personal Law Board. Shri Arif Mohammed Khanji also supported the Supreme Court of India's judgment in Shah Bano case to make the right to maintenance of the divorced Muslim wife. And it is indeed our honor and privilege to have the Honorable Governor of the state of Kerala, Honorable Shri Arif Mohammed Khan sir, with us for this important session. And without wasting any single minute, I would request him to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. You are really kind. I am indeed grateful for the gracious words which you have used. Professor Dr. Vishwanath Kararji, Rahul Kararji, Shri Sayyid Zakaria Sultanji. First, let me give my profound thanks to Dr. Mrs. Gagandeep Kang. She is, I have heard her today for the first time, but have read many of her pieces. And she is truly an erudite scholar. She has not only given us a broad picture, the risks and dangers which are involved, but she has also given a message that we should be aware of this crisis, but we need not panic. So thank you very much, Dr. Saab. And I must also compliment Honorable Shri Vishwanath Kararji, MIT University, for taking this initiative to organize this 4-day conference on the theme of time to prepare and prevent, then repair and repent. The crisis last 3-4 months has almost turned the world upside down. We are being constantly reminded that the post-COVID world is not going to, it is going to change forever. It is not going to remain same. The old normal. That also gives rise to the question whether the kind of lifestyle that we had in pre-COVID days, was that really normal? Or something was lacking thereof? Because the mother nature is the workings of the mother nature. It is not possible to fathom. When we refuse to wake up to the realities, the new demands of the times in which we are living, then Mother Nature something happens which sort of nods us, wakes us up, and it all depends on our response, our understanding and response to this crisis, that what the new normal is going to be. Your one young speaker has spoken here, and he has quoted Martin Luther King Jr. But that what Martin Luther King had said in slightly modified form was adopted by United Nations as one of its slogans, which said not just the things which he mentioned, but it also said that disease anywhere is threat to health everywhere. Insecurity anywhere is threat to security everywhere. Poverty anywhere is threat to prosperity everywhere. What we need to understand, I am not going into the scientific aspects, that is not my field. Dr. Kang has done it very ably. Therefore, I am going to take some time to address the related issues. The related issue which has staring us in the face is that even if you are very healthy, you are doing everything possible to take care of your health, but you will be in danger if people, those who are living around you, the community in which we are living, if the health standards are not maintained, then our own, even individuals' health will be in danger. We in India, even our civilizational heritage tells us, and based on that civilizational heritage, we must show keenness to improve our health standards. Because we have been told that without physical fitness, the well-being of mind and spirit are not possible. Dharmat kama mokshanam arogyam moolam uttamam. Our tradition tells us that a healthy body is the real medium if you want to, whatever you want to do, for doing good deed. A healthy body is absolutely essential. And healthy body, as I said earlier, even the health of the individual depends on the health of the community, health of the surroundings. And in today's world, the global economy that we have, Dr. Kang just now mentioned that the kind of traveling which has become possible for everybody today, the spread of virus becomes much easier. I have also seen among the papers that Professor Vishwanath Kararji has addressed the United Nations General Secretary, imploring him to create a consensus among nations to devise solutions for the post-COVID-19 situation. This, I think, is the gist of the matter. We need cooperation at every stage, collaboration at every stage. Although at the moment, when we are not even sure whether the virus has reached its peak, so it's sort of firefighting operation which is going on everywhere. But even at this time, when we are engaged in managing the crisis, it is absolutely essential to prepare and plan for the post-COVID world. We need to use the technologies, the new technologies. Dr. Milind Pande was talking about these technologies, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, information technology, to address the issues like climate change, preservation of our environment, as the overwhelming opinion of the experts is that unless we strictly adhere to the strategy of sustainable development and we refrain from destroying our nature, our climate, our environment, then the dangers and risk which we are facing, we will not be able to contain them if we do not pursue a strategy based on the principle of sustainable development, which goes with the preservation of the environment and taking care of the climate change. To do the needed repair on the environment, we need unity and cooperation of nations, where sovereign states can come together to share burdens, address common problems, and seize common opportunity. This may need friendlier resolution or border disputes and other issues, because only this week we have seen that during the midst of this crisis, which is being faced by the whole mankind, we saw more than 20 of our brave soldiers laying down their lives to defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of India. These, if there is greater sense of responsibility, greater cooperation, then surely these unfortunate episodes can be averted. In this context, I will also I would like to highlight the need for the international institutions and organizations to play more meaningful role and adjust to the new reality. And instead of, I don't want to name anybody, but last few years, increasingly, and this is important in the context where experts are saying that in the pre-COVID area, our lifestyles were not really, our strategies, our methodologies were not really normal. So it is time for the international institutions and organizations also to take stock of the situation. And instead of becoming irrelevant, they should assume new roles, new responsibilities, so that they become indispensable. We also need to, not just, I'm talking about all the international institutions and the organizations. And since in this meeting, there is large presence of the university community, I cannot ignore the effect of COVID-19 on our educational scenario. Online and distance learning have to become new normal. And here, if I may, quote from one of the interviews of Yuval Noah Harari, the international celebrity, who teaches at Hebrew University in Israel. In one of his interviews, he said that the university had taken the decision to make all academic courses available online more than 10 years back. But there were certain interests who never allowed the decision to be implemented by the university. But after COVID, he said that within a week, the decision was implemented. It means that the institutions, even those institutions who have the capability, who have the wherewithal, who have necessary resources, even there, the old habits, part of human psychology, that we do not want to step out of the comfortable zone of our old habits. And now is the time to wake up and see the new situation, the new crisis, think in an innovative way, and find solution to the problems that we are facing. The old concept of education as information has to go. This would mean a brave new cyber world where human beings could even have new sensory experiences generated by computer implant. Today we are living in this world. It is here that we feel the need to restructure our system of human resources development, both in terms of technology and in terms of intellectual input, since that would be least expected of a teacher in a classroom would be information. And from 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, we move on to 4 C's, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. The new normal caused by COVID-19 in education is an indication of this change in our educational scenario. And we need to pump in a lot of resources into this because the future of our world is in the development of our human resources. Today, it is not enough that we be careful about our health and well-being alone. If we do not create a system which takes care of health and well-being of everybody in this society, then we shall be vulnerable and at risk. In order to accomplish this goal, we have to address various related issues like economic inequalities and social and educational backwardness of large sections of society. I would like to now conclude by saying that the Indian civilizational tradition tells us that according to the Indian civilizational tradition, the highest aspiration, human aspiration, is realization of truth. But same tradition tells us that this is not within the reach of weak persons. We have to take care. I've already said it, but again I'm repeating it, that we have to take care of the health of our people. A healthy body is absolutely necessary for any kind of development or progress in other fields. So it is true that such situation is full of apprehensions. The times are scary, but if we take all these things as a wake-up call, then this crisis brings with it incredible opportunities. The present crisis is real, but as it has been pointed out by our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, that every crisis brings with it opportunities. Now it is for us how we uh, give our response and how we manage this situation that we are facing. In the emerging scenario, I would place my trust on better education and research. Trust will have to be given to research in bioscience for more positive purposes and not for methods of biological warfare. It is here that universities and other institutions can play a significant role. Our aim should be to identify each and every opportunity that lies hidden among the adversities posed by COVID-19. As it has been said, that education is not the learning of facts, but the training to think. Let us hope that the COVID-19 pandemic would empower us with food for thought and innovative thinking. I again compliment MIT World Peace University community for organizing this online conference, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my state thought with this very distinguished assembly of scientists, experts, activists, and university community. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Honorable Governor of the State of Kerala. Thank you very much, Shri Arif Mohammed Khan Sahab. Listening to you has always been a treat, and I'm sure everyone here would agree with me. We have heard you in Bharatiya Chhatra Sansad also, and if I recollect all those memories, it's definitely always, every time a treat. Thank you very much for that. And with us in this session, we have the presence of our beloved founder, Honorable Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karaj, sir. I'm tempted to request him to after your speech. So if I may request sir to say a few words. Please, sir.
Really speaking, I'm really very happy and deeply touched by both the speakers. The very first speaker, which I had never met before, Dr. Gagandeep Kang, the great lady, who gave a real insight about this coronavirus or the COVID-19 and its impending danger. I felt like having some special invitation to her to the World Peace University sometime so that we can discuss, deliberate on this very issue wherein we are trying to discuss about the very main issue of eradication of biological and chemical weapons. Really speaking, not only these two weapons, but even the hydrogen and the nuclear weapons, what we have been talking. In the morning, I showed it to you, this book, The Bell of Hiroshima, ringing once again on its own, giving a clarion call to the whole world to be cautious. Possibly, I would like to tell you that Honorable Governor, esteemed Governor Arif Mohammed Khan Sahab, when talking in the World Parliament of Science, Religion and Philosophy, had spoken only one word. I remember that. He was speaking all the time on reality. He told me that time, I said, this World Peace Dome in the name of Sandaneshwara, about whom early morning I said, we are coming out with the 9 universal secrets of the principles of human life. And possibly the whole discussion is going on regarding the real sustainability of the human life itself on this earth, or all living beings. I had asked him one word, what should I call this philosopher's Sandaneshwara World Peace Dome or the World Peace Library? He said, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. The truth is one and only one. The people called by different names. And he used one more word from the Vedic text. The Vedic text, and he said, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. World is one family, and we need to understand that we have a duty to perform. Possibly now it's a big challenge for all of us, like people like us. But the mainly, as I've been telling all the time, and the reason behind this organizing this webinar or this 4-day conference on this issue, a small educational institution like World Peace University, we feel it's our duty to really give a clarion call. And as Arif Mohammed ji said, that our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, I call him as a visionary Prime Minister who has taken the initiative, but now it is high time that India has a role to play, Mother India, because it has some different, altogether a vision and a mission. Promoting the peace-loving holistic society is the main mission. Promoting and encouraging the very family system, which is on the ruin in the whole world, causing so many problems. So many things can be spoken, but I'm really grateful for both the speakers, what they said, and especially to Arif Bhai and Madam Gagandeep ji, that they have given a new insight. And we have been feeling enlightened on this issue. I am an incorrigible optimist, like Arif Muhammad Khan Saab, that we have tremendous confidence that yes, we shall try to prepare ourselves for any impending danger, but let us prevent it at least and try to challenge the United Nations or the Security Council for that matter to think very seriously. They have many more things to do, but they should not be egoistic or having a rat race or a mad race in developing only the weapons and a coronavirus-like thing, which is causing a danger to the whole of human race. And possibly, as I said in the morning, in the known human history, for the first time, this pandemic like coronavirus has given a clarion call or a warning, a command, which has closed all 160, 170 nations like America, China, every nation, all the churches, the temples, the Kaaba of Makkah, Medina, the Pandapur temple, the temples in the whole of the world. For the first time, it has never happened before. But this is a very horrifying situation and a horrifying silence. In Marathi, they call it Smashan Shantatam. So this experience we are not expecting again. And this mask which we are required to put on, how many days it will take, I don't know. I think Gagandeep can only guide us in this respect. But possibly we are hoping that very soon, by month of at least July, August, we don't know. I can't predict or give a prophecy, but we have a hope that with the words of wisdom which have been spoken by these two great men, they will guide us and we will try to do our duty through this World Peace University. Thank you, sir. Arif Bhai, pranam. Pranam.
Thank you, sir.
Pranam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you very much. And now we have the next eminent speaker of this panel, which I would like to invite, Honorable Advocate Shri Prashant Bhushan ji. But before I request him, I would like to introduce him to all of you. Honorable Advocate Prashant Bhushan ji is a public interest lawyer in the Supreme Court of India. He was a member of the faction of the India Against Corruption, the movement known as the Team Anna, which supported Anna Hazare's campaign for the implementation of the Jan Lokpal Bill. Shri Bhushan was drawn to public activism influenced by his father. His main areas of interest have been human rights, environmental protection, and accountability of the public servants. He is associated with various organizations, including the Center for Public Interest Litigation, CPIL, People's Union for Civil Liberties, PUCL, and Transparency International India. He is also the convener of the Working Committee of the Campaign for Judicial Accountability and the Judicial Reforms. In year 2010, there was a series of anti-corruption demonstrations in India after high-profile cases like Commonwealth Games scam, Others scam were highlighted in the media. An anti-corruption crusade, which included a demand for the Jan Lokpal bill, took place and became known as India Against Corruption movement. Shri Prashant Bhushan was one of the several activists who participated in this anti-corruption crusade. We are really, really honored to have you here with us today, sir. And it is now indeed my honor and privilege to request you to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's indeed a great pleasure and honor to be invited to speak at this important conference that you have organized. Though I'm not a medical specialist or a specialist on issues of this coronavirus, but I have been reading and studying about this for the last 3 months, especially since the lockdown happened. And my views on this are somewhat different from the conventional or the conservative views on this virus. If we look at the antibody studies that have been done to study how many people have actually been infected by this virus in different countries, in different areas of different countries, even in India now, these antibody studies have been done by the ICMR. We find that the number of people who have already been infected, even in India, runs into crores, though the official figures of number of cases are still in 3 or 4 lakhs or something. In other places like New York City or Stockholm, etc., they have already reached almost 50% of the people have already been infected of the population. But the reason why the number of cases being reported are so much fewer is because more than 90% and up to 99% of the people who have this infection do not have any symptoms at all. They go through this virus without any effect, any health effect on them at all. And if you look at the profile of the people who are dying from this coronavirus, you find that the vast majority, more than 80% of the people who are dying across the countries are in the age group above 75. And more than 90% of the people who are dying, perhaps even 95% of the people who are dying, are people who already have other serious problems. The fact is that among the people who are dying of coronavirus, there are very, very few young and healthy people, almost negligible number of children below the age of 15, and very few other people who are otherwise healthy, which shows that if this virus infects a normal healthy person with a good functioning immunity and immune system, he is not likely to suffer any symptoms at all. In fact, the human body is a extraordinary organism, just like the global environment or the global ecology is an extraordinary ecosystem. The human body has normally trillions of viruses residing within the body. They are part of the normal biome or the normal biodiversity residing within the human body. In fact, everybody needs to watch a fantastic interview of an American doctor called Dr. Zach Bush, and also the interviews of Nobel laureate in chemistry, Professor Michael Levitt, as well as the interviews of Professor Jayant Bhattacharya, Professor of Medicine at Stanford University, and Professor Sunetra Gupta, a professor of epidemiology at Oxford. If you watch and hear these people, you will realize, particularly Zach Bush, he says he had predicted that the next virus, like the SARS, MERS, etc., the next virus is also likely to originate from Wuhan in China, because Wuhan is one area which uses the maximum amount of pesticides and herbicides and has about the highest pollution of any city or any area in the world. And he says that these two situations, that is, uh, uh, use of enormous pesticides and herbicides, which destroys the biodiversity of the soil, etc., and heavy pollution, is tailor made for mutation of viruses and the creation of new viruses. So, the what the damage that we are doing to the environment by using all these unnatural things and destroying the ecosystem is causing these viruses to mutate. The damage that we are doing to the human body by consuming foods which are heavily laden with pesticides and herbicides and all other kinds of chemical additives, etc., is damaging our immune systems, which is leading to such viruses causing symptoms and causing problems in our body, which would not be caused if we had a perfectly healthy, functioning immune system. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. Secondly, how do we prepare for COVID? Of course, some people, particularly those with compromised immunities, very old people, are going to have symptoms. They will need treatment, etc. And one of the things, or the main thing that this causes, is a loss of oxygen. Therefore, the preparation that we need is strengthening our treatment centers and hospitals so that they have the right kind of treatment. Of course, first we need doctors to be properly educated by the right kind of treatments. For example, initially it was thought that putting all these COVID patients need to be put on ventilators. Later, at least in the West, in Europe and America, they realized that that was not the correct solution. And in fact, that may have caused more damage than good. By and large, very, very few people needed to be put on ventilators. And by and large, people just needed oxygen. But still, we need to have properly equipped hospitals and treatment centers. We need to have personal protective equipment, particularly for our health staff, etc. About this issue of data and vaccine, I do not share the views of the many of the conventional people in this area. My view is that having a lot of data or even tracing people or testing people, etc., is not going to be able, at least in a country like India, is not going to be able to stop the transmission of this virus. Ultimately, all these diseases, whether it was SARS or MERS, etc., went through the natural normal phase and thereafter died out. It was not because of lockdown, etc., that uh, that it died out. It died out in a natural course without causing that much damage. Even if you look at the excess deaths due to COVID, you find that the excess deaths, if you hear Professor Michael Leavitt, he points out the excess deaths this year, despite this coronavirus, is probably not more than 15% of what happens during the normal flu season. So vaccines by and large have not led to the eradication of any disease, with the possible exception of smallpox. Otherwise, we are developing vaccines by the dozens. In the US, children are inoculated with more than 70 vaccines, and perhaps they are causing more damage to their general immune system than the good they are causing. But we need to prepare not just for COVID, but we need to, for example, lockdown. Now, we should have, before getting into lockdown, we should have prepared for the lockdown. And in fact, the Disaster Management Act says that for any disaster, you have to have expert advisory bodies who need to be consulted to decide as to what kind of preventive or ameliorative steps that are required. Unfortunately, in India's case, at least, we declared a lockdown suddenly without even consulting any expert body about it whatsoever. We needed to anticipate the economic impact. In fact, lockdown we knew would cause loss of jobs, especially to the daily wagers, the migrant labor, etc. It would cause loss of money in their pockets. It would lead to their reverse migration back to their homes. These are effects of the lockdown which we should have anticipated. And we should have prepared for this effect of the lockdown by deciding that all right, they will suffer from loss of jobs and loss of money, and therefore how would money be transferred to them? How would food be transferred to them? How would they be transported back to their homes? These could have easily been planned for. Similarly, we also could have and should have anticipated that this lockdown would lead to the schools closing down, exams having to be postponed, the other institutions like courts and other regulatory institutions stopping to function or functioning with minimal capacity, etc. And therefore, we should have anticipated all this and said, how do we ameliorate this? Because we cannot have a situation where the courts are locked down and people are denied access to justice, people are denied access to their fundamental rights, etc. But unfortunately, this has happened because we did it without any planning whatsoever. So, in a nutshell, my view about COVID and preparedness is that we need to prepare ourselves by, firstly, uh, reversing the damage that we are doing to our ecosystem, to our environment. Secondly, reversing the damage that we are doing to our own bodies by eating all kinds of unnatural foods, by lack of exercise, etc., so that we repair our own immunities. In my view, that's a much better way for preparing for these viruses than thinking of vaccines, etc., because vaccines are not, they have not been the solution for SARS, MERS, AIDS, etc., etc. So many viruses have come and gone. We have not been able to deal with any virus by a vaccine. But still we want to go that vaccine route because there are commercial interests involved in preparing these vaccines and selling these vaccines.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have many questions also for you. So let's have some time in spare for the questions also.
I finished whatever I wanted to say.
Yeah, please go ahead. We still have a minute.
So that's a much better way for preparing for these viruses than to go in for these patchwork solutions like vaccines, etc., which may have some limited validity, but are certainly not the better long-term solutions for these kind of problems. Viruses will keep on coming, and the human body, and if you have a properly functioning human body, and if you have a properly functioning ecosystem, they will deal with them, just as we have been able to deal with so many viruses which have come and gone in the past. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your valued inputs. And definitely, I can see many questions, those would come to you. Like, so for many of them, this is also an opportunity because some of the companies' shares we have seen skyrocketing at 52 weeks high today. But definitely, we'll talk about it in the question and answers. So let me now move ahead with the agenda. And now we have with us a very, very eminent speaker of this particular session, Honorable Professor Dr. Atanu Basuji. So before I invite him to address the gathering, it is indeed my honor and privilege to introduce him to all of you. Professor Dr. Atanu Basu is the Deputy Director and Head of Electron Microscopy and Pathology Lab at NIV Pune. He is an Adjunct Professor of School of Basic Sciences, IIT Mandi, India. After having obtained a BSc in Physiology from Presidency College, Calcutta, and a doctorate in biochemistry from Pune University, Professor Basu pursued his postdoctoral studies at NIH, Maryland, USA. Professor Basu is a gold medalist of Calcutta University at Faugre Fellow EMSI, and a recipient of Robert Koch Orientation Award. His research interests have been focused on the pathogenesis and development of therapeutic of viral hemorrhagic fever. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right, like dengue and Ebola. His group has developed a very high resolution electron tomography imaging platform through gyro-electron microscopy interface that has potential to address both macromolecular imaging and 3D real-time tomography of the cell-virus interactions. It is indeed our honor and privilege to have you here with us today, sir. And without wasting any further minute, I would like to request to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, friends and colleagues. On behalf of Professor Balram Bhargav, Secretary, Department of Health Research and Director General of the Indian Council of Medical Research, I pay my respects to Honorable Governor Shri Arif Khanji, and thanks to Honorable Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karatji, Founder President of MIT, distinguished co-panelists, faculty, students of MIT, and all viewers of this event for giving this opportunity to address you today. As family ICMR, we wish that you and your families continue to be safe and stay protected through the current crisis. Now, my previous speakers, the Honorable Governor, Dr. Kang, Shri Bhushanji, Shri Karad, everybody has made my life quite simpler because they have covered most of the talking points. And in a nutshell, I think you have got an overall view of the current perspectives ranging from the origin of pandemics to social responsibilities to collective responsibilities to the effect of society, because a virus or a pandemic doesn't live in isolation. It's a fabric of a continuum. So the responsibility doesn't lie with an animal from where the virus comes, but it's our collective responsibility to understand the whole holistic point of view of approaching a public health crisis. So what I would do to add on to their very distinguished and very relevant comments in pertinent to the topic being discussed today would be the fact that give you a few additional inputs. And the most important input is that being a very avid reader of medical history, I do not know how many of you are aware of a very rapidly emerging branch of science called archaemicrobiology. So in archaemicrobiology, scientists try to go back and revisit the ancient plagues of human history and try to reconstruct the events which led to those pandemics that had actually wiped out civilizations, and how one can learn from those public health responses, public health in quotes, that we can carry forward the knowledge to undermine and control today's pandemics. Because this is an era of civilization where you have to understand they did not have any kind of nucleic acid technology or vaccines. It was purely based on observational sciences and concept of understanding the interaction of man and nature. So fundamentally, if you look at it, I will not take a lot of time. I'll be very brief because I know there'll be a lot of questions ahead. That we have three major landmark pandemics if we go back in the track and annals of history. The first one goes back to 430 BC, which is known as the Great Plague of Athens, that had practically wiped out the Greek civilization. Still today, we do not know what was the cause of that plague. The second major event of human history where infectious disease and a plague was documented that actually changed the fate of the Americas was the great Cocolizzi plague that between 1347 and 1351 in Mexico had killed approximately 200 million people. That is what the numbers go from historical records. History has a lot of things to teach us. And subsequently, as you all know, was the Great Plague of the Black Death of Europe. Again, that took place somewhere around 1351. For a plus minus 10 years, it raged, killing the same range of people. 75 to 200 million people were wiped out. Next event was the 1918 flu, the Great Spanish Flu, that is remembered by virologists as one of the fundamental footprints of an influenza virus to civilization. And believe me, even the destructive power of all combined unconventional weapons, nuclear weapons, cannot match the potency of the 1918 flu. Because between January 1918 to 1919, the virus is estimated to have infected approximately 500 million people. And its killing was between 2 to 50 million people worldwide. Now, the lesson learned from the Spanish flu is the fact this is occurring at a time where there is no globalization. There are no airlines taking you within 6.5 hours to your destination, but the waves and waves of the pandemic killed with equal potency. So if we can understand history and historical relevance of pandemic evolution, we will be much better prepared to understand how to deal with the future pandemics. So that's one point. I wouldn't take a lot of time because, as you know, India has faced our own share of epidemics and pandemics, ranging from the variola major, which is the smallpox outbreak in in the early 1900s. And here, I would really emphasize that the collective wisdom of public health response had put India as a global leader, not only from the beginning of the era, but still today we are a global leader in multiple areas of epidemic and pandemic and public health response. Specifically, I would like to point out with the smallpox example that when in 1974, India was carrying 86% of the global burden of smallpox. But we created a very ambitious project called Project Zero, in which in 1 year's time, between 1974 to 1975, India declared the last case of smallpox. So from 86% of the global burden of a vicious viral infection, the number went to zero in 1 year's time. And this was an era where you did not have cutting-edge technology of science, but you had the collective wisdom of public health, community approach, understanding the disease, and looking at an integrated fabric of mitigation. Having said that, I think I will rapidly take you to the fact that we have also become a polio-free country as of 2014, and we are still continuing to make that status. And as a country, we are facing multiple challenges. I can tell you as a virologist and at National Institute of Virology, that the recent past has not been kind to the public in the sense of emerging viral threats. And we had some major emerging viruses in the past, which we could identify, detect, and prevent, of course. This includes the Chandipura virus. I think if you're aware of it, in 2003, there was an epidemic of encephalitis in Karimnagar, which we could identify as a novel virus. We had the Kaisanur forest disease, which is in Karnataka, Shimoga, and many parts of southern Maharashtra is now getting affected. The Nipah virus outbreak 2018 and 19, that's again a zoonotic agent. And of course, the current crisis of the SARS-CoV-2. Having said that, I reiterate that India's leadership capability in response and mitigation of these infectious disease challenges have been met through three things. And yet again, I would like to supplement the comments with my eminent speakers that a very fundamental, and I repeat, a very fundamental thing for public health and pandemic mitigation is the approach of continued risk assessment. This continued risk assessment and combined multi-sectorial effort is a key infrastructure in capacity strengthening and is very crucial for mitigation of any kind of public health emergency. Anticipation of the event through risk assessment. SARS did not take us by surprise, neither did COVID-19. I would cut a long story short, that multi-sectorial effort of different sections of Government of India, especially in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, The Indian Council of Medical Research pioneered the development of the virus research and diagnostic laboratory platform, because we knew one thing, that an open eye is much better than a closed eye. So surveillance and advanced surveillance was the key to the whole thing. And I think today under ICMR, the VRDL network, we have covered most of the country. There are laboratories all over the country which are continuously monitoring specified laid down signature viruses at this point of time. And during the crisis, because of this pre-existing infrastructure, we could very rapidly scale up the testing as well as resource utilization and mobilization platforms through multi-sectorial efforts. Now, I think Dr. Kang, Honorable Governor, everybody addressed the fact that dramatic climatological changes are here to be there. I mean, it's here to happen. And I think yesterday I saw a very interesting clip in the BBC that for the first time in the Arctic, a town has recorded a temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. So you can imagine what's in store for us in the future. Because as the permafrost is maintaining, what else lies under those ice will probably emerge as the pandemics of the future. We still do not know what's going to come out from these frozen secrets of nature. So definitely it is likely that animals are going to be the future challenge. The human-animal interface, SARS-CoV, MERS-CoV, SARS-CoV-2, all of these viruses have jumped species from bats and other sources. And it is still not clear what intermediate hosts are involved. That is the reason why Dr. Kang mentioned the concept of zoonosis. And I'm happy to tell you that ICMR has created a new center for zoonosis to look into all these things. Very specifically in Maharashtra, it's in Nagpur. And finally, I would like to conclude by saying that two things are important. That India is a member state of multiple UN conventions, like the OPCW and Biological Weapons Convention, and is an extremely progressive, active, visionary, and frontline state party to these conventions. India is not a passive signatory to these conventions. We are completely aware of the international biosecurity situations. We are completely engaged in a very free, fair, transparent manner with state parties to understand what is mutual. And in summary, the past has helped us identify our weakness, organize our strengths through multi-sectorial efforts, join hands to preserve, protect, and prevent. Continued risk assessment due to strengthening of our biosecurity and biosafety infrastructure, and most important, very fundamental to a pandemic mitigation, as the Honorable Governor said, is to provide community support through robust outreach and awareness programs. Nothing will affect any outcome unless the community is aware and the community is taken care of at the grassroots level. That is the fundamental of a democracy and the fundamental of any pandemic or public health mitigation. So in this way, I would feel that we can only prosper through multiple hands coming together to different sectors to protect society from challenges of emerging infectious diseases and coming plague. I would like to now conclude by thanking all of you again for giving us this opportunity, for your patience and your time. Please be safe, be secure in this challenging time, and don't hesitate to call us at NIV if we can be of any help. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your inputs. It was really, really an amazing discourse of knowledge. And I hope Prashant Bhushanji is also with us. I can't just see his video actually, but I hope he's there because I have many, many questions. So Prashant Bhushanji, if you could please confirm if you're there with us. I can't see your video, so can you please at least join through audio? If,
I think sir is connected, sir. I can see.
Okay. So, yeah, so I think I will start with the questions. First question, if this was not as a surprise, then why did many countries delayed it to the point where population of the world has to stay inside? This question is coming from Soumya Tibrewal, probably to Atanu Basuji. If this was not a surprise, then why we delayed it till everybody was locked down?
Actually, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, sir.
Also, the question, if I get you, is if the world was getting ready for a next pandemic, then why did the current situation evolve?
No, the question is if this was not a surprise, so if we were expecting something like this, why we waited till the point that everybody got locked up?
Okay, so I think this question is an important point in understanding public health response mobilization and understanding the risk in ground. So basically, internationally, we have been preparing for a respiratory pandemic, but it was mostly thought to be coming from emerging influenza viruses. So when a novel agent usually is described by any country or any group of scientists to be the causative factor of a novel disease X, like Dr. Kang said, then there are a lot of understanding of fundamental population response that needs to be first done. So yes, we did lose a bit of time between, and the speed at which the agent spread globally was very fast before any community response or a government structured response could be on the ground. So yes, although it didn't take us by surprise, it did take us by surprise in the speed at which it went through, the velocity on which was miscalculated.
Right. Thank you very much for that input. The next question is coming for Prashant Bhushan ji. Sir, if you can hear us, please, could you please unmute your mic? Prashant Bhushan ji. Sir, do we have you? I'm not sure. But let me take this question because this seems to be a really interesting question. I'm sure somebody from the panel would be able to address it. The question comes from Deepamala Roka. And the question is, to what extent we can consider the economy as the driving factor in pharmaceutical sector, as we are seeing major companies are investing in pharmaceutical companies, and I think they are getting ready for future business opportunities. Wow. So anybody could please throw some light on this. Question is open to everyone on panel. So Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, or Deepak Apte, sir, Milind Pande ji, anyone would like to address, or Chitnis, sir? I mean, we have many people on panel.
I could just share a comment on that question, being the fact that in this kind of a unique situation, when we are faced with the challenge from an unknown pathogen, there is a huge amount of experimental economy that comes into play. And experimental economy of disease is definitely an emerging dialogue in multiple fora. So unless you take the risk, there is no gain. So although as you would see that you have candidate molecules coming out from in silico to in vivo in a very fast track, the ultimate decision whether to use it or not has to be taken with a pinch of salt. So this is a very newly emerging area of disease economics, which is now forming into a subject on its own.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for input. The next question is again, it's coming your way from Mr. Mohit Sharma. And Mohit Sharma ji asks a very simple question. He says, well, we are wearing masks now. But as our beloved founder, Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karar, sir, also addressed it twice. So for how long we need to wear these masks? And after these masks, what next?
Well, from me, I don't have an answer to his question at this point of time.
Okay. Okay, the next question is coming from Jaita Brahma. Jaita Brahma asks, how are we going to prepare and cope for a populated country like India, where other factors also come into play, like poverty and other diseases and other unrest situations? So along with that, so this is making a very lethal combination, the pandemic along with other problems with country like India. So how are we really going to deal with all this? It's a big question, I know. Anyone on panel, please.
May I come in?
Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah.
Over to you, sir.
Yes. Multiple problems we have, maybe work in long term in favor of us, because we will have more flexibility and we are more resilient. You always see that if there's a huge wheel, it has got inertia, so it takes time to rotate, but it takes time to stop also, because it has got inertia, it has got resilience. So if we consider from that point of view, we will have our own ways of dealing with it. Our ways will be different from probably Western ways. We have seen in this pandemic also that the way we the death rate, etc., is low. Just now it was mentioned also because of maybe natural immunity or whatever you call it, because we are resilient. That's the thing. But at the same time, we have got our own problems also, and those problems Western world won't face.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your input. Thank you very much. Next question is coming from T. Muthu Pandian. And this question is again from Atanu Basuji. He asks, viruses keep on coming. Oh, well, question got moved. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. If the viruses like HIV are used for bio-war or something like this, how exactly we are going to deal with such kind of situation?
I think it's a very complex question in the sense that we cannot really comment on that at this point of time. But natural evolution of viruses in their natural reservoirs is a continuous process. And as you are aware, in the last 2-3 years, any pandemic cannot happen overnight. It builds up gradually. And if you have seen the way Australian bushfire tragedy took place, where I think about Australia's forests were raged down by a fire that was man-made, we don't know. But the toll that took place in Australia because of that, a lot of species that never saw humans before, maybe they were deep inside the reservoirs of their own niche, will now come and mix with human niches. So many viruses which are endogenous in these reservoirs will now jump species into humans, and they will try to adapt themselves into a new environment. That is when the disease is experimental, and the virus and the host are both experimenting with each other to form a balance. That's when you see disease. Now, if you look at the clinical spectrum of COVID, you have a broad spectrum. In fact, coronaviruses were not known to cause human illness. It was a major veterinary illness agent. I mean, bovine coronavirus is very, very common. Chickens have got a virus called infectious bronchitis, which is a major veterinary problem. Coronaviruses were an accidental discovery from 1960s when people were looking at the cause of common cold. And from the nasal isolate of a child, that met the typical Robert Koch's description of what is a virus. It's a filtrable agent, and it could reproduce the common cold symptom in monkeys. And they knew that they had something, a virus of common cold. But that did not meet any of the classical description of virus at that point of time. Till the virologist, I think it was Tyrone in Oxford, who decided to take the sample to his colleague June Almeida, who is an electron microscopist. So the moment they put that thing into the electron microscope, they could see these wonderful 70 nanometer round particles with a halo that looked like the sun's corona. So, and Jane on that fatal day said, I think we have a new virus, so why don't we call it coronavirus? That's how the whole story began. And after that, till the emergence of SARS, coronavirus was just, cases of coronaviruses. You wouldn't have a pandemic kind of thing. But was it really present in what niche of nature? Every species has got a coronavirus. It is very, very well distributed in nature. But it's a matter of time before it will come out from its hidden niche to you.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt here. So the human inoculation of this was intentional or accidental?
No, there was no human inoculation of this COVID. It's from a zoonotic source, which are bats. And I think there is a lot of literature out there to clearly show that it had an origin from bats. And as you know, there is a huge demand of wildlife and bush meat. In fact, bats are delicacies. And SARS coronavirus was also linked to the consumption of civet cats. So when, it's a man-human animal interface where the exchange is happening. So I wouldn't use the word intentional.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I still precisely have 3 minutes to go before I have to start with the next agenda. So I have last 3 minutes. And in this interesting discussion, let me take you to the last question, which is again very, very important. This question was answered actually by Velu Maniji in the previous session. The creator of ThyroCare was with us. But I would like to pose this question once again to Atanu Basuji because it is interesting. It says, viruses would keep on coming. What will be the learnings from this pandemic as for public, for government, and scientists?
Okay, to answer your question, I think that is relatively a simple answer. That we have to really learn from the lacunae and the loopholes which we need to really address in a collective manner. And one of the fundamental things that is this kind of pandemics teach us how to bring together multiple disciplinary areas into community and move ahead as one. And there are many dimensions of technology which has to be hybridized. Like I think you began the session by saying artificial intelligence like technology. And I'll be happy to tell you that one of the technologies, which is called the blockchain technology, has played a very important role in the current pandemic also in understanding contact tracing. So we have to understand how we can pool our resources together to collectively address these issues and lacunae. So it's essentially a gigantic SWOT analysis that has to be done, starting from a social scientist to the most high-tech industry that's available within the spectrum of a nation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And we are right on time for the next point on the agenda, and which is voting on resolution. So I request my technical team if they could please show us the resolution for this particular session. I would like to request all the attendees also to please be ready and keep looking at their screens. Of course, all the panelists are also requested to vote. Your opinion, your views are really, really important. So after I read this resolution, you would see a window where you have to answer. You have to basically share your opinion with us with yes or no. So here comes the resolution. Session 2, pandemic, time to prepare and prevent, then repair and repent. The resolution says, we, the participants at the International Conference on Eradication of Biological and Chemical Weapons, appeal to those countries spreading minuscule and health and ensure the minimum 5% of their GDP on improving health services and to create a verifiable and transparent mechanism at WHO to ensure the same. And your time for polling would start now. The time has started, my friends, and it is only 1 minute. Oh, please don't say yes in chat. I just saw one chat message popping up saying yes. Please don't do that. There is a polling window that must have come in front of you. So please poll. Already we have last 20 seconds. So please note, we just have 1 minute. That means 60 seconds. So please make sure that you vote. Please go ahead. Please cast your vote. Just last 30 seconds left. We all must know your opinion. So it is really important for all of us that you share your opinion with us. 40 seconds have lapsed. Last 20 seconds. Please hurry up. Please cast your vote so that we come to know. In last session, many of you could not understand how exactly this functionality works. Nevertheless, we expect you to vote this time. Last few seconds. 3, 2, 1. And your time is up. I request my technical team to share with us the results of the poll so that I can share with everyone. If I can. Oh, great. No one has stood against the motion, and 97 out of 197 have said yes. Thank you very much for your response. And now it is time that I move forward to the next point in agenda, where I'm going to request the moderator of this session, Professor Dr. Milind Pande, to kindly propose the concluding remarks. Over to you, sir. So you're mute. Please unmute yourself. We could not hear you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you, Professor Gautam. It was a great honor to listen all the panelists, the great panelists with their collective wisdom. Let me start. I will be summarized in 1 or 2 minutes for each speaker. starting with Dr. Gagandeep Kang. She rightly narrated the vaccines has a role to play in pandemics and an R&D blueprint for action to prevent the WHO R&D blueprint, what he said to prevent this pandemics, new technologies for vaccine development, the DNA vaccines, the R&D vaccines, and the Indian players which are contributing like Bharat Biotech and Serum. This country needs the vaccines as fast as possible. Very categorically pointed out, we need public health and surveillance, the preparedness for clinical care, and that starts with the primary care. And then she quoted awareness of our interaction with the environment is essential but ignored. And the quotation came from Mahatma Gandhiji that action expresses priorities. Thank you, Dr. Gagandeep Kang, for this great insight. Honorable Governor, His Excellency Dr. Arif Mohammed Khan, is very point-wise narrated the disease anywhere is threat to everywhere. That is what he spoke about the mother nature, how we are refusing to awaken our response to situation and the new normal. So we need to understand this. The cooperation and collaboration at every stage is required. What he said, the international institution should share the new roles and responsibilities. The institution who had capability to come out of comfortable zone and find innovative solutions. And he really spoke about the brave new cyber world. Education is training to think innovativeness from COVID-19. That is what the last message he quoted. And we had our founder president, the father of MIT Group of Institutions, Dr. Vishwanath D. Karat sir, spoke about the reality, the Ekam Sat Mitra Bahuda Vadanti and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The Prime Minister has a very visionary steps, and the ultimate of all this is promoting holistic, peace-loving global society. And it was again great learning and great experience to listen Honorable Advocate Prashant Bhushan. The use of pesticides and herbicides damaging our immune system. And he again focusing on how to prepare for COVID, strengthening treatment, properly educated doctors. He majorly said the people needed oxygen, the PPEs for health staff. What I like is the data will not be helping in stopping transmission. The effects of lockdown, the reverse migration, the job loss, the affected areas of the university education, exams, sports. And he gave a message that prepare ourselves. Preparing for viruses than vaccines and properly functioning body which deal with the viruses. That was his message. And the last speaker for this very interactive, very transformative discussion, Professor Dr. Atanu Basu sir, he majorly spoke on the collective responsibility and wisdom for the public health. The RC microbiology, what he gave a new dimensions, new theories, the new words. The ancient plagues of human history destroyed the civilization in past, and how we can learn from all those major pandemics, the Great Plague, the ecology break in Mexico, the Black Death of Europe, and the Spanish flu. The various approaches to the risk assessment, the anticipation of the events in the risk assessment, and multi-sectorial efforts and approaches. That is what. And lastly, he also concluded with providing the community support, the community awareness. We need the multiple hands coming together to help community. And in one of the questions, he said the importance of the technology that is blockchain, how it is helping in addressing the various solutions. My friends, in this transformative session, the pandemic's time to prepare and prevent and repair and repent. This pandemic's really given us the big time opportunity to explore. एक शायर बहुत अच्छे लफ्जों में कहता है कि ना संघर्ष ना तकलीफ, क्या मजा है फिर जीने में। ना संघर्ष ना तकलीफ, क्या मजा है फिर जीने में। तूफान भी थम जाएगा जब लक्ष्य रहेगा सीने में। माय फ्रेंड्स, नव और आत्मनिर्भर भारत की ओर, that is what our honorable prime minister said, the mother India will become a Vishwa Guru in 21st century, whatever founder president has said, and the entire world is looking for some solution for this, and that to emerge from this mother India. Thanking you, and over to Gautam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your summarizing entire session in your words. Thank you very much. That was really very, very important for all the listeners. And now I would like to request the Pro Vice Chancellor of MIT-WPU University, Group Captain D.P. Apte sir, to kindly propose vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Today, the first day of this eradication of biological and chemical weapons conference, and this particular topic just now we discussed and we heard was prepare and prevent. And in that, I would like to add one more P which has come through the last session as well as this session, was not to panic. Even the previous session, those who are not heard, actually the points came up in this session and previous session were more or less similar, and there were different kind of people we were talking about. In the previous session, there was a Lieutenant General Shekatkar, this Colonel Ataule, and Dr. Velimani. But the points came up, some of the very common points came up. Is first is the knowledge. We should develop our knowledge, information. Next was a confidence with a common sense. The confidence was a point which was brought out again. And as a result of confidence, we will be able to tackle this particular situation, and optimism is required for this particular condition. That will lead us to the awareness, and that awareness can make us more better to prepare for the facing this kind of challenges. Another point came up was your immunity system and health care as such. If the person healthy body, that's what today the speaker was talking about, healthy body, repairing immunity, the word came. So we are all revolving around the immunity and keeping our health itself, rather than getting scared away with this pandemic and scared away with the viruses. Viruses will keep coming. In fact, the previous speaker went up to that extent that death is inevitable. So we can't be worried, we can't be scared about that. We should be able to face it properly. And now today's just now session, we had Dr. Gagandeep Kang. She talked about various aspects of medical aspects of this, how we are prepared or what we are doing it. Many people we feel that, oh, nobody is doing anything. But now she has told us how much research or how many things are going behind for so many years. And although we are doing so much, still a lot of things is left out. Then we had our Honorable Arif Muhammad Khan. We always enjoy his lectures, whatever he speaks, with a lot of study and research, and he spoke very simple but straightforward things, what we should do and how we should be prepared for that. With education and research is the key. That's what he talked about. Then we had Advocate Prashant Bhushan, and as he has talked about preparation, again he was talking about we should be prepared and we should repair the immunity. The last speaker, Dr. Atanu Basu, he talked about this biology, microbiology. He went up to 400 BC. I don't know. It is a good point to research for MIT-WPU, although we don't have, because it's not a medical science. It is a good point to research for us. We can even go back to some other civilizations which were eliminated completely, like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, about 10,000 years, 8,000 years ago. Before that, Mesopotamian thing, how they went and extinguished, we ourselves don't know. So many civilizations came and got extinguished. It's a good point of research to learn from that. So I thank every one of you, those speakers, Dr. Gagandeep Kang, Honorable Arif Muhammad Khan, Advocate Prashant Bhushan, and Dr. Atanu Basu. I also take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to our beloved founder president, Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karat. He has given us this opportunity, the wonderful learning for all of us here on this particular topic. We keep hearing a lot about this pandemic through WhatsApp and all that, but this is the real knowledge we are getting it and direction we are getting it. I also propose a vote of thanks to our Executive President, Mr. Rahul Karat, and our Vice Chancellor, Dr. N.T. Rao, for being with us and giving us this motivation to learn from many people here around. I also, last but not the least, I propose a vote of thanks to all the audience who is still here, even in the night at almost 8 o'clock. 8 p.m. We started in the afternoon at 2 p.m. And my team who is working behind not only today but for last many days up to midnight time for test calls and putting the system in place. Thank you very much. God bless and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your vote of thanks. Thank you very much, everyone in the audience. Thank you very much, everyone in the panel. But before I conclude this session, let me quickly remind you that tomorrow is yet another important day 2, and we will have again 3 sessions there. Tomorrow we'll have session 3, Invisible Enemy, Visible Destruction, Failure of Science and Global Governance. So this session would start at 2 p.m. sharp. So I request everyone to join at least 10 to 15 minutes in advance so that we can start our session. And please remember, we will start our session right on time at 2 p.m. So make sure that you all are there. This session would be followed by session number 4, Biological and Chemical Weapons, Siding with Angels or Demons. This session will start at 4 p.m. sharp. So I request everyone to be there for this important session as well. And tomorrow, session 5, the last session, would start as usual at 6 p.m. And it will be a special session on the stories of the survivors. So again, it would be very, very important and motivational for all of us to understand from those stories. Thank you once again, everyone in the panel, everyone in the audience. Thank you very much for being there for this entire day. And for last 6 hours, we all have been listening and learning so many new things. And we would continue this journey in days to come. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Good night.